All right, welcome to Barrie City Council tonight. Tonight's council meeting is being held with members of council, the executive management team, and the city clerk here in the council chambers. Members of our senior leadership team and other staff are available to answer questions if matters do come up on our agenda. They can do that via video conference. We do have some awards and recognition items tonight and some people in the gallery for that, but before we get to that, our first business item is confirmation of the minutes. Members of council, the minutes of the City Council meeting held June 6, 2022 have been circulated. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none. Minutes are adopted as printed and circulated. Excuse me. So, as I mentioned, there are 3 items under awards and recognition tonight. Looking forward to each of these. And the first is a bittersweet one. That is recognizing Major Stephanie Watkinson of the Salvation Army Barrie Bayside Mission Center. Major Watkinson has been a fixture in our community and guided her organization through the most difficult time anyone can imagine for a congregate care facility, and that is COVID. But her contributions are much broader than just surviving COVID and helping all of her gentlemen in the facility navigate COVID. The role of the Salvation Army during the pandemic was so much greater than that. And whether it was feeding other organizations, feeding the people who made it out on the streets and were trying to make it through living on the streets in our community, or her advocacy. She will be leaving Barrie after 4 years as the executive director of the Bayside Mission to work as a corps officer at the North Bay Salvation Army. And of course, as executive director, she oversees the men's temporary emergency shelter program to 26 men who are 21 years and older experiencing homelessness, including providing referrals to treatment programs, life skills management, goal planning, and aftercare supports. In addition to the shelter, she oversees family services, including access to family service workers, and manages the community meal program, serving lunch and supper 7 days a week. In addition to her normal role supporting individuals in the community, she was instrumental in coordinating donations of food and supplies after the July 15th tornado. And on behalf of the city, I'm going to call in a moment here on our fire chief, Chief Mainprize, to say a few words. But I also wanted to say in particular that assistance in the aftermath of the tornado was just the latest in a series of contributions by the Army to our community. In our most difficult times and for people in the most difficult of circumstances. The Salvation Army mission and its people, led by Major Watkinson for the past 4 years, have been there for us. So thank you, and I will call on Chief Mainprize to say a few words.
Mayor Lehman and members of council, thank you for the privilege of presenting this award to Major Stephanie Watkinson from the Salvation Army in recognition of her outstanding dedication, leadership, and commitment to serving our community for several years, and specifically in the aftermath of the tornado July 15th last year. The impact of the tornado created an urgent and immediate need for hundreds of our community members to receive food, water, and basic fundamentals of life. And that need was immediately met by Stephanie and her team, who transformed a school gymnasium into a quasi-grocery store, drugstore, and clothing store, literally within hours of receiving truckloads and truckloads of donations for our community. Stephanie and her team were the first ones there every night, the last ones to leave. They made sure that the needs of our community were met day in and day out, and they decommissioned the project almost 7 days later to make sure that nothing was wasted that was donated by our community. So in recognition of your tremendous effort, thank you. Our community will miss you, and North Bay is very fortunate to be getting such a dedicated member to their community. So, congratulations.
Yep. In addition to Chief Mainprize's recognition of your work following the tornado, I wanted to recognize your leadership and support for the least fortunate in our community. You know, what I tried to say in the introduction there was the job of running a emergency shelter throughout a pandemic. I mean, it's difficult in normal times, and these were not normal times. So thank you for what you did to continue to care for everybody. And then to use the kitchen, not everybody knows this, but Salvation Army has been preparing meals for other service providers across our community for at least a year now. I think back to close to the start, 2 years now, yeah, it's the start of COVID. So in addition to feeding the people who come into the mission for lunch and dinner, they've been preparing meals to go to the rest of the shelter system. So that volunteer effort and the way that you make it work out of that kitchen at the Bayside Mission is just astonishing. I'm truly feeding so many people in our community who need it. But I just, on a personal level, I want to thank you because we stayed in communication throughout a terrifying time, and you were a source of compassion and professionalism and constant commitment to the people you serve. And thank you for that. Thank you so much, Stephanie. So on behalf of us.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Would you join with me in recognizing Major Watkinson for her service to Barrie?
I'm not sure if I'm honestly going to be able to get much out. A moving truck comes tomorrow morning, so it's been an emotional ride the last couple of weeks saying goodbye. This is a wonderful community, and I'm always saying I didn't do it alone. Yes, I have a wonderful team at Bayside Mission that likes to go along with my crazy ideas, like preparing an extra 200 meals a day, but I also have a very strong support group with the other community partners within the city of Barrie and Simcoe County, as present in the gallery, as they came out to support me, knowing that this was going to be an emotional time. But thank you. I've contacted many of you over the years, and you've always been there to lend a hand, give some advice. So I do appreciate your support, and I just continue to pray for the city as we face some really difficult times in the days and weeks and months ahead. And that you always remember those most vulnerable in our community. Thank you again. Which way am I looking?
All right. Bittersweet indeed, but thank you as well to everybody who came out to be part of saying goodbye to Major Watkinson tonight. Our next item is to recognize two hockey teams for their success in the Ontario Minor Hockey Association AAA Championship, and that is the Minor Adam AAA U10 and Minor Pee Wee AAA U12 hockey teams who were both successful in winning at that Ontario AAA Championship. And I'm not 100% sure who's here to speak on behalf of the team. Yeah, come on down. So I will give you the floor, and then we can we have certificates obviously for each of the players.
Awesome.
Okay.
Thanks,
All right. Thanks.
Thank you. I'm Joe Rockburn. I'm the Vice Chair of Hockey Operations with Barrie AAA's Zone. So thank you to Council, Mayor Jeff Lehman, City staff, including Tammy Maynard, for organizing tonight's recognition ceremony. Marcy Batrick for her tireless work organizing our ice times, along with our ice scheduler, Victoria Jacobs. We would also like to thank Paul McCarron for his leadership over the last 2+ years of COVID, keeping our athletes safe while ensuring they could participate the moment the province allowed them back to the rings. The Barrie AAA would like to recognize Pride Month as we continue to ensure hockey rinks and dressing rooms are safe and inclusive for all those that want to participate. Tonight we are here to recognize two of our AAA hockey teams. Firstly, our under 10-year-old team, led by Coach Blair Sherritt. This special group of athletes had a dominant season, going undefeated in league play with 22 wins, continuing their winning ways through the playoffs, culminating in Barrie AAA's first Ontario Minor Hockey Association championship of the year, and only our third in the last 20 years. Our second group, although not as dominant in regular season, continued to develop and get better as a team as the year progressed. Our under 12-year-olds, led by coach Andrea Rinaldi, battled through playoffs in the early stage of the OMHA championships to find themselves in a double overtime semifinal game. This group not only scored in double overtime to win that game, but a few hours later they would top the feat with another double overtime goal to collect Barrie's AAA's second OMHA championship of the year and fourth in the last 20. 2 championships, or red hats as they are referred to by the kids, because of the red and white truckers hats awarded in 1 year is remarkable. In closing, on behalf of the athletes, myself, I want to thank our AAA Board of Directors and Chairman, Greg Hotham. Not a coincidence, in his first year, we have 2 OMHA championships with a former NHLer at the lead. With soccer, baseball, and golf season underway, we were lucky to get a handful of the athletes here tonight. I will call each player down, and if they can come and get a certificate, and then hang out here for a picture with the mayor.
Yeah, there's a lot.
Okay, so this is the... If I can call on from the U10 team, Amir Nana. Andrew Martins. Bryce Vuick. And Braden Higgins. From our under 12-year-old group, Hunter Jones, Lucas Matheson, Dylan Biga Wadstein, Luka Dragovic, Ryan Glatt, I'd also like to acknowledge assistant coach Paul Matheson here with us tonight.
All right. Usually what we do is have parents or those taking pictures just come down over here, and then players, you want to come in this way, and you just face that way for a picture, so we sort of group in together right here.
Maybe behind. Coming behind.
Sure. Want to do 2 separate ones, or want to do them together?
Let's
No. Look more like a full team. Joe, did you want to?
Make sure we can see the camera can see.
Good stuff. All right. All right, I got one more thing for you before you leave. Okay, so in addition to the certificates that we've got for each player, and congratulations again to both teams for doing very proud on the Ontario level. That's just amazing, especially a couple of double overtime wins. That's amazing. So we have these hockey pucks that say well played. It's Councillor Morales' favorite slogan, well played. City of Barrie, actually, a couple of years ago when we were using this slogan, we had pucks made, and we can't think of anybody better to give a box of pucks to than you guys. So please take that with us as well with our compliments, or with you as well. All right, guys? Yeah, you all get about 10 pucks now, too, in addition to the certificates. And we'll give those to you too, Joe. Thanks for carrying off the hardware there. Congratulations, everybody. Join with me in congratulating these teams. Good luck, guys. No, really, they're good pucks. I'm serious. Okay. Thank you to everybody who was here for our awards and recognition items tonight, and congratulations again, teams, and thank you again for your service, Major Watkins. And we will now move on with our business agenda. Our first item, or next item, is under report from officers. For those who don't want to stay for the continuing romance and drama of local government, we totally understand if you wish to make your way home at this point. But we're going to proceed with the 2021 Annual Integrity Commissioner report. And I believe we have our Integrity Commissioner with us remotely. There she is. Welcome to City Council, Ms. Craig. And I will just, we'll just give about 30 seconds more as we've just got some guests leaving before we get started. But your report, of course, is on tonight's agenda. And we appreciate you being here to hit some highlights for us briefly with council and, of course, answer any questions on that annual report. And so with that, I'll hand it over to you, Ms. Craig.
Thank you very much, Mayor Lehman. So to you and members of council, Mr. Prowse, your staff, and any public that are in attendance, I'm here this evening to make a few brief comments and respectfully ask that you receive the annual report 2021 of the Office of the Integrity Commissioner. I set out in the report that I received 9 formal complaints in 2021 and 7 formal complaints in the period between January 1st and May 31st of 2022. There were 9 informal complaints in 2021 and 1 informal complaint in 2022 to date. Given that this is an election year and the code states that no inquiry can begin and no report can be submitted to council after nomination day, which this year is August 19th, I've decided to include the first 6 months of 2022 in the count of complaints for the annual report. I won't go over the full content of the report. You have it before you. I hope you've had an opportunity to read through it. But I would be pleased to, as the mayor pointed out, receive and respond to comments after I've given you this brief overview. What I'd like to express to council is that the Integrity Commissioner has a prescribed and limited ambit of authority, and it's set out in the Municipal Act under Part 5.1, Accountability and Transparency. And I recognize that it's often frustrating for the public, for members of council, and I dare say also for Integrity Commissioners, for myself, when matters come forward as a code complaint with significant and complex circumstances that are either not within the jurisdiction of the Integrity Commissioner to investigate, or I find that there are insufficient grounds to investigate. In these circumstances, people are often left frustrated, and people often ask, where is the accountability and transparency at the municipal level? And that's a very good question. I would submit, though, that we go collectively to the source for that response. In the MFP or Bellamy Inquiry of the Computer Leasing Inquiry of the City of Toronto in 2005, Justice Bellamy made recommendations for the good governance for the City of Toronto in the wake of the computer leasing scandal, as we all remember. Justice Bellamy's recommendations were aimed at improving practices of governance, ethics, lobbying, procurement, which meant they went to the core of the integrity of municipal government and governance. To the people who run the city, councillors most importantly, but also the interaction with staff and the interplay between the policies of the city and the code of conduct to ensure good governance. So while the code of conduct and the rules that I apply to the behavior of individual members of council is very important, it is not the only component of a governance structure at the city. As I point out in the report before you, the Integrity Commissioner is not the arbiter of whether a member of council participates in various city processes. I do not have the authority to review or adjudicate on matters decided upon by council as a whole or staff. I do not have the authority to make decisions on what matters involving councillors under other processes, such as a disciplinary hearing, a regulatory body, or matters before the court intersect with my office. If a matter goes before another process, I may receive a complaint within the timelines under the code and determine after the completion of that process whether or not I will conduct an Integrity Commissioner investigation. If a complaint is about a member's conduct in a city process, for example, a planning process, economic development, closed meetings, fundraising, the Integrity Commissioner will receive and investigate by applying the rules of the code. However, if there is a city process to go into closed meeting or to review grants or on the development of applications or for fundraising, and this process is followed, the Integrity Commissioner has no jurisdiction to further review the matter unless the complaint alleges that there has been dishonest purpose, bad faith and contravention of city policies, or some other process that can be adjudicated by the Integrity Commissioner. If so, and there is a violation found, I will report my findings and make recommendations to council. Transparency and accountability are very important to the city and to the Integrity Commissioner, but the code is not intended to prevent a complainant from using alternate methods of resolution, such as under the Human Rights Tribunal, collective agreement, or before the Police Services Board or the courts. On page 8 and 9 of the report, I set out that there are complaints received during this reporting year that have touched on issues of acceptable language of members of council, respect in the workplace, and influence of a member, in particular with reference to planning and development matters. As set out in the report, I have stated that if a member takes a position in favor of a business application approval, this is conduct that is allowed under the code. It's a representative role and not contrary to the code. If a member of council as a private citizen attends a public meeting in respect of a planning application in which they have a private interest, in accordance with the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act, they must declare a conflict. In the report, I cite from a decision of a former Integrity Commissioner of the City of Toronto that members are permitted to escalate issues within the city on behalf of developers and to take points of view that are favorable to developers, and such activity is not contrary to the code unless the council has a private interest under the code or pecuniary interest under the Municipal Conflict of Interest Act. The Association of Municipalities of Ontario, or AMO, was asked during its 2020 consultation meeting with the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing to provide input on potential stronger penalties that an Integrity Commissioner could recommend to council where there's a finding of a breach of the code, in particular with reference to harassment issues. On March 5th, 2021, the province launched a 90-day consultation period for feedback on municipal codes of conduct. Requesting comment through public consultations, the province sought to strengthen municipal codes of conduct by looking at ways to increase accountability of council members and to ensure that there was a safe workplace. Of note, it's important to remember that while municipalities were given greater powers with the amendments to the Municipal Act in 2006, with the addition of Part 5.1 of the Municipal Act, the province has not amended the powers of the Integrity Commissioner to recommend greater financial penalties beyond the suspension of up to 90 days or suspension from public office. These are decisions of the province, decisions not to amend the Municipal Act, and as such, the Integrity Commissioners have not been given any greater authority or powers. Let me conclude by stating that the City of Barrie Code of Conduct sets out the agreed upon standards against which the conduct of individual members of council is evaluated. Within the parameters of authority given to Integrity Commissioners, the city may expand the rules of conduct for members of council. If the rules are vague, then the rules can be made more detailed, but only within the ambit set out by the Municipal Act. A careful review of the report before you will identify that there have been significant issues that came before me as complaints during this reporting year. Have there been ethical lapses? Yes, there have. Has the process for informal resolution of matters been successful? Yes, they have. Are the matters that fall outside of the purview and statutory powers of the Integrity Commissioner perplexing? Yes, they are. And so when I report that the code process as written has worked and members of council have been compliant with the request to participate in investigations, this should not be taken to mean that there have been no issues, but rather the purpose of having a code, that is to identify ethical lapses and breaches and enforce the code rules as written, this purpose has been achieved. If, as I have pointed out, there are matters not within the authority of this Integrity Commissioner, of the Integrity Commissioner of Brampton or Ottawa or any of the other municipalities where there have been significant issues that fall outside of the jurisdiction of an ethics officer, then I would submit that these issues should be continued to be discussed at the provincial level, and where possible, there should be recommended changes to policy of the individual municipalities to strengthen within the authority the opportunity for the Integrity Commissioner to make any sort of enforcement. I conclude by reporting that a matter not on its face a code matter, in other words, if it relates to a closed meeting, or if it relates to a planning matter, or if it relates to a harassment matter, unless and if it is within the jurisdiction of the Integrity Commissioner, shall not be addressed by this office. The public may believe that there should be greater oversight or penalties, and certain matters should be before the Integrity Commissioner. But these are subject to policy discussions. These are subject of matters before the province. These discussions have happened. I believe that they are ongoing. And with public input to their local and provincial elected officials will continue. I thank you for your attention. If you have any questions, I will take them now.
Thank you very much, Ms. Craig. Questions from members of council for our Integrity Commissioner. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and thank you, Ms. Craig, for the report. I only have one question, and that's the on all the both formal and informal complaints, you always have some that are with settlement by the parties. I just want to know what that looks like. What does that mean when you have with settlement by the parties?
So through you, Mayor Lehman, to Deputy Mayor Ward, the code complaint processes are two. You have a formal complaint process and an informal complaint process. And there are times when, with a formal complaint, the parties will be invited to consider informally settling the matter. And what that means is, as Integrity Commissioner, I act as a mediator. I will bring forward the matter to the respondent, the member of council who is alleged to have breached the code, and I will shuttle mediate. That means go to one party and say, here are the claims. How would you like to respond? Go to the complainant and say, these are the responses of the respondent. And if it is an informal complaint, I will make recommendations to right the wrong and going forward to understand what the obligations are. If it is a formal complaint, I will settle the matter and I will make a report to both of the parties. If it is a formal complaint, both parties may decide they do not agree with the informal resolution, and at that time I will bring a report to council. So it's not a way to hide information from the public. It's not a way to obfuscate. But what it is to look at the purpose of the code. The code is to identify to members of council what their obligations are. If there is a member of council that there is an allegation that they have breached that, to let them know, you breached it, this is what you should be doing, and these are the reasons why you shouldn't have done it. And if both parties are satisfied that the member of council understands their obligation, and I am satisfied that there is a willingness for the respondent to go forward and no longer breach the code, then it will be resolved. If I feel that the respondent has not understood or recognized the seriousness of the contravention, I will go forward with a formal complaint and a report to council.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions, members of council? Councillor Kungle.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman, and good evening, Ms. Craig. Thank you again for, as always, a very thorough and detailed report. I have two questions. The first one is related to the summary that you have around the municipal codes of conduct. And so as you highlighted nicely verbally and also in your report, we saw that provincial engagement occur. We were hoping for some implementations, I would say, or expecting some type of outcome reported back, I believe in the fall. That didn't happen. We saw a private member's bill attempt to have that pass, but then hit a timeline with the provincial election. Is there any further details you or in the role of the Integrity Commissioner or your respective peers across the province have any line of sight to as we move into the fall? If there's a requirement to bring that back, or is it optional because of the break in a provincial election?
Through Mayor Lehman to Councillor Congo. Through the public consultations, a group known as the Municipal Integrity Commissioners of Ontario, of which I am a part, brought forward our position on the recommendations to strengthen the role of the Integrity Commissioner. We spoke to the need for stronger enhancement of the powers of the Integrity Commissioner, and AMO has kept this going. Regrettably, the recommendations were supposed to come forward before the provincial and municipal election, and I dare say that the matter is likely to continue after the next municipal election. Certainly from the perspective of integrity commissioners and municipal actors, we would like to keep this going forward. Certainly I can't engage in any sort of political activity, but I can say that the matter is very significant, and at least from the perspective of ethics officers, we continue to look for ways to better serve municipalities by ensuring that when we receive an egregious complaint, we're able to make recommendations that are proportional to the severity of the contravention. I don't know if that answers your question, but I think that any provincial authority matter needs light and needs consistent pressure for it to go forward.
Thank you. That's helpful. I do have one other question, and it comes from looking across, and I fully respect, I probably have a very narrow understanding of the different roles of integrity commissioners, but I was wondering if you could speak to giving us an idea of what could be at the political will of a municipal council to authorize an integrity commissioner versus what has to be mandated through the legislation, through the act. So one instance is, in some areas, I wasn't sure if we are seeing some integrity commissioners with serious allegations who might be able to step in with an individual who does not want to make a complaint for different reasons, for fear, for privacy. Where there's just cause for an integrity commissioner to actually act on behalf of an individual that is looking to make a complaint to an HR department, as an example. So can the integrity commissioner in some areas in Ontario right now step in to support individuals to proceed through filing a complaint if there's strong concerns for the risk of their own privacy?
Through Mayor Lehman to Councillor Congo, the Municipal Act gives the authority to the Integrity Commission, to the municipality to have an Integrity Commissioner, and the municipality to give powers to the Integrity Commissioner to receive complaints. Outside of prescribing what two sanctions the Integrity Commissioner may recommend to Council, which is a suspension of pay for up to 90 days and a sanction, the municipality is free to set out the policy for the process, including anonymous complaints, or how the Integrity Commissioner would manage a complaint as it relates to confidentiality. For example, there are some municipalities that allow the Integrity Commissioner to receive a complaint and determine whether there is a need to safeguard the identity of the complainant for safety reasons. That has to be balanced with the respondent, the member of council's right to know who is accusing him or her. However, the municipality, through the amendments to the complaint protocol, may certainly consider ways to safeguard the potential of reprisal for members of the public and or staff.
Thank you, that's helpful. I was just trying to figure out what our role around council is when we look to operate within our own policies versus when we come up against an actual legislative piece and degrees of, I guess, freedom to make those changes. I guess lastly, and I don't want to put you on the spot for answering this evening, but is there anything in complement to your report by which you would say council could look at our policies that would enable you to act within your role in a more fulsome way? Or is there anything that our policies could further support the process around working to the full elements of the Code of Conduct?
Through Mayor Lehman to Councillor Congo, I think in answer to that, some of that has already been done by your staff. There have been amendments to the respect in the workplace policy and how those those complaints, when it relates to a member of council, work hand in hand with the Code of Conduct and the Integrity Commissioner. Some of the gaps have been addressed, and I believe that otherwise it's an education piece. It's ensuring that the public, staff, and members of council understand when a code complaint can be accepted, the limitation period, which again, your staff have amended to go from 6 months to 1 year from the alleged breach of the code. So I do think you are in a good position right now to address concerns that the public may have as it relates to harassment and workplace issues. I may state, and I have stated in the past, that the Integrity Commissioner has jurisdiction over the conduct of individual members of council. There is concurrent jurisdiction with your staff in the Human Resources Department, and so a member of the public and staff may make a complaint to the Human Resources Department and the Integrity Commissioner. And now with the amendment to your policy, your Integrity Commissioner and your Human Resources staff will work in concert.
Great. Thank you, Ms. Craig.
Any other questions for the Integrity Commissioner? Ms. Craig, I have one. Thank you very much for your comments, because that was also my first question. Your comments regarding strengthening the regime of Integrity Commissioners in Ontario. It was my understanding there was all-party support for changes to do that, to address egregious cases of harassment by councillors, specifically in Ottawa and Brampton and elsewhere. And I understand from your answer that Integrity Commissioners have provided their advice to government. This is a common concern that I hear from the public, that the Integrity Commissioners need to be given the ability to recommend penalties commensurate with the severity of the violations of codes of conduct. My specific question for you is actually test your knowledge of our own code, but it's an interpretation question that I think is relevant because of matters that have arisen in the last few weeks as well. And that is, your jurisdiction is specifically over the code of conduct, but our code of conduct, I believe, section 20, if I got it right, references that a member is responsible to follow all city council approved policies. So does that therefore make your jurisdiction extend to the enforcement of council approved policies if there is a question of whether a member has violated a council approved policy?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I'm looking at the code. I certainly don't know it by heart. And so the inclusion of that provision is to ensure that, because the Municipal Act, and I have it right here, I flipped to it just before I started, the Integrity Commissioner has duties set out in the Municipal Act under section 223.3 sub 1. And one of those is the application of any procedures, rules, and policies of the municipality and local boards governing the ethical behavior of members of council. So there will be policies of the city that govern the behavior of members of council. And the Integrity Commissioner is tasked with the application of the code of the behavior of members of council. So necessarily, the Integrity Commissioner must look at whether the member of council has abided by the policy of the city. The Integrity Commissioner cannot say whether or not a member has breached the expense policy or the acceptable use policy. What would happen if a complaint came in is the Integrity Commissioner would go to the subject matter expert of the city, would ask what are the provisions of the relevant provisions of the policy, what is required of a member of council in this particular circumstance, and based on the subject matter staff member saying yea or nay, there has been a breach, then I would take that and apply it to that rule of the code that says members of council must abide by the policies of the city, and I would make a finding.
I see. Okay, thank you for that. And may I thank you for your annual report, or your 18-month report, I suppose. There was a time when I believe your quote was, "I'm like the Maytag repairman," not particularly needed in Barrie. It's unfortunate we've kept you busier in recent years, or you have been kept busier by an increased volume of complaints. However, I believe there are many people in our community who continue to appreciate your professionalism and a big picture in presenting very thorough findings to us. So thank you for both this annual report and the work that you do to respond to code of conduct issues in the city of Barrie.
I thank you, Mayor Lehman and members of council, and I do want to underscore for anyone who may be listening that I take every single matter that comes to this office seriously. There are matters that do not fall within my jurisdiction, and I don't just fluff them off because there is importance in this office. But I also think it's important to let people know that just because there's a code of conduct doesn't mean that there's a whole bunch of stuff going on that shouldn't be going on. Because I take this role very seriously, each and every one of you knows that if there has been a matter that has come to my attention, I very thoroughly investigate it. So when I say to a complainant or to the public, there has been no breach, that's because there has been no breach. And so while this is not sort of a broad statement that there is complete good behavior on the part of all, I certainly can say that each and every member of council throughout this term has respected my office, has complied with my request for information, and that's why I say the code process works. So I thank you all for your compliance with my request, and I thank you, Mayor, for your leadership.
All right, thank you, Ms. Craig. I believe we have a motion to receive the Integrity Commissioner's report. Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the 2021 annual report of the Integrity Commissioner be received.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the 2021 annual report of the Integrity Commissioner be received. Comments or questions on the motion? Seeing none, those in favor of the motion. Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Thank you very much, Ms. Craig, again, for being here tonight.
Thank you and good night.
Okay, members of council, we do actually have a tax application matter. I believe, Deputy Mayor Ward, have you got the motion for that tax application matter?
I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the list of applications submitted to council for the cancellation, reduction, or addition of taxes dated June 20th, 2022, submitted by the Treasurer in the amount of $11,941.29 be approved.
Thank you. It is moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the list of applications submitted to council for the cancellation, reduction, or addition of taxes dated June 20th, 2022, submitted by the Treasurer in the amount of $11,941.29 be approved. Madam Clerk, have we had any objection to this list of application for cancellation, reduction, or addition to taxes?
Mayor Lehman, our office hasn't received any, but I will confer with the Treasurer that we've not received any.
Mr. Miller.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, we have not received any.
All right. Any comments or questions for members of council? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Anyone opposed? None. That carries. Thank you. We will move to the committee reports. Deputy Mayor Ward, back to you.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the Planning Committee report dated June 7th, 2022 as circulated be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the Planning Committee report dated June 7th, 2022 as circulated be adopted. These are the consent items from Planning Committee. It's a draft plan of subdivision extension policy and an application for zoning bylaw amendment at 157 Ardaugh Road. Comments or questions on Section A of the Planning Committee report? Seeing none, call the question. Those in favor? Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Section B, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the Planning Committee report dated June 7th, 2022 as circulated be received.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the Planning Committee report dated June 7th as circulated be received. This is the application for the public meetings. It was the application for an official plan amendment zoning bylaw at 320 Bayfield Street. Also an application for zoning bylaw amendment for 651, 655, 659, 669, and 673 Mapleview Drive East. Comments or questions on Section B? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Section C, please. Councillor Kunkel.
Thank you. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section C of the Planning Committee report, June 7th, 2022, as circulated be received.
Sorry.
My name's not on it, though. It doesn't matter.
Yeah, okay. It's moved by Councillor Kungle, seconded by Councillor Thompson. Section C of the Planning Committee report dated June 7th, 2022 as circulated be received. This is to receive the report of the public meeting on the application for zoning bylaw amendment for 19 Dundonald Street. Madam Clerk, I need to declare a potential pecuniary interest on this matter as my parents live close to this site. So I will give my seat over to Deputy Mayor Ward and not participate in the vote.
Okay, as you've heard, Section C of the Planning Committee report dated June 2nd, 2022 is circulated to be received. Any comments or questions on it? First of all, has Mayor Lehman's conflict been recorded?
Yes, Deputy Mayor Ward, it has.
Thank you. For the motion, any comments or questions on it? All in favor? It is carried.
All right.
Yep. We do. What is it?
Okay, Section D, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section D of the Planning Committee report dated June 7th, 2022 is circulated be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section D of the Planning Committee report dated June 7th, 2022 is circulated be adopted. This is an application for zoning bylaw amendment 520 and 526 Big Bay Point Road. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I will call the question. Those in favor, please indicate. Anybody opposed? None. That carries as well. Okay, that takes us to the first general committee report from June 13th. Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the first general committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be received.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that the first general committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be received. It's a confidential personal information matter, executive management team performance management. Comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor? Anybody opposed? None. That carries. We'll now move to the second general committee report of that date, June 13th. Section A, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the second general committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be received.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section A of the second general committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be received. It's to receive the report of the Finance Corporate Services Committee from May 31st and the report of the City Building Committee dated June 7th. These are the consent items. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of Section A. Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Section B, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the second general committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be adopted.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section B of the second general committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be adopted. These are consent items as well. Municipal election, student education, 2021 year-end audited financial statements, Municipal Heritage Register for 2 and 4 Innisfil Street, Lake Simcoe Region Conservation Authority Service Level Agreement, Harvey Big Bay Point Road parking restrictions, driveway restoration policy, and traffic signals at Grove and Johnson Street. Items on all of the above. Comments or questions on any of those? Seeing none. Those in favor of Section B. Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Section C, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section C of the second general committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be adopted.
It's It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section C of the Second General Committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to overnight waterfront parking and traffic bylaw updates. Comments or questions? Sorry, we do have an amendment. Go ahead, Councillor Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. I have an amendment moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Robert Thompson, that motion 22G 130 of Section C, the Second General Committee report dated June 13th, 2022 be amended as follows. By deleting the motion in its entirety and replacing it with the following. That traffic bylaw 2020-107 as amended be further amended as follows. A, as detailed in Appendix B to staff report dated May 31st, 2022 concerning overnight waterfront parking and traffic bylaw updates, and as amended in Schedule 1, no parking anytime as follows. By removing Gray Lane both sides from Tallendale Mill Road to the easterly limit, by adding Gray Lane west side from Tallendale Mill Road to easterly limit, and by adding Gray Lane southeast side for 230 meters west from the easterly limit to 30 meters from Tallendale Mill Road. I can speak to that.
It's moved by Councillor Jim Harris, seconded by Councillor Rob Thompson, that motion 22G 130 of Section C of the Second General Committee report dated June 13th be amended as follows by deleting the motion in its entirety and replacing it with the following. The traffic bylaw 2020-107 as amended be further amended as follows. By removing Gray Lane both sides from Tallendale Mill Road to the easterly limit, by adding Gray Lane west side from Tallendale Mill Road to the easterly limit, and by adding Gray Lane southeast side for 230 meters west from the easterly limit to 30 meters from Tallendale Mill Road. Go ahead, Councillor Harris.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Lehman. So this particular amendment has been come to with considerable consultation, and thank you again to Mr. Forsyth for you and your staff's investment and time in this to try to get it right. We have engaged residents and surveyed residents and feel that the solution we've come to certainly respects the survey results and hopefully will meet the needs of the residents in this area where there has been parking restrictions and where they've noted that streets in the area have benefited from the less restrictive waterfront policy, so this is something that we're looking forward to introducing to the area.
All right, thanks, Councillor Harris. Any comments or questions on the amendment? Okay, seeing none, I'll call the question. Those in favor of the amendment? Anybody opposed? None. That carries on the main motion, Section C, as amended. Comments or questions? Seeing none, those in favor of Section C as amended? Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Section D, please.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section D of the Second General Committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be adopted.
Thank you. It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that Section D of the Second General Committee report dated June 13th, 2022 as circulated be adopted. This is with regards to automated speed enforcement cameras in school and community safety zones. Comments or questions? Seeing none. Those in favor of Section D? Anybody opposed? None? That carries. Okay, completes the committee reports. It brings us to inquiries of staff. Deputy Mayor Ward, have you got any inquiries?
I have none.
Members of council, inquiries. Councillor Jim Harris.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. It's been really wonderful since we've been back in the chambers to see some of the groups come in, and we've recognized some wonderful accomplishments, both individual and certainly young people. And it was great to see the AAA hockey team, and I think we can take a small win in that we helped get the ice available to these teams. I remember the presentation from Mr. Hotham and Mr. Fontaine, so kudos to council and to all the people who helped. I know Ms. McAlpine's team did that as well. So my inquiry really is, and I'll share, my first time at council was I came as a hockey player for a team that won a provincial championship. And that's my introduction to the council chamber. So I know we've been doing this kind of, and I apologize if I'm getting it wrong, a little bit more by invitation. I'm wondering if there's thoughts or appetite to actually have a program that we know that staff would know that when whether it be an artist or a dancer or a hockey player team, when they win something at a provincial level, where's the standard where we would know that they would be invited to council to receive the recognition? Because I remember coming as a young person, and it was awesome and great that they came tonight. And so I didn't know if there was some sort of thought or plan around making that a a planned event that we know that these folks who receive provincial recognition would know they were going to be invited to City Council? So I don't know who that goes through to, or is that just a...
Well,
Thank you,
yeah, I
Mayor
can take a crack at it. I mean, our informal policy, of course, is Ontario champion or higher, if you will, obviously a national champion or an international success. Just because if we go to the regional level, we end up with too many to recognize. Barrie's awfully good at sports. So on a regional level, between the 4 major youth sports and everything else, in addition to, as you say, artists and music competitions and so forth. I think, though, Madam Clerk, you might want to comment as to how sort of the word has got out or not to different groups. I mean, I know that the youth sports organizations now are well aware of our policy that you can come in and have your baseball, soccer, hockey team recognized and so forth. We need to spread that further into, basketball, flag football, lacrosse, everything that is played here. But in terms of other groups and organizations, Madam Clerk, I'm not sure whether there's been a proactive reach out. Maybe you can answer that.
Through you, Mayor Lehman, to members of council. No, we don't have really a specific reach out. We usually get our information if there's from members of council, or if we see something in the news that somebody's done something international, national, provincially. We usually try to make contact with those people to see and invite them to council. That's how we picked up on some of the hockey teams. So we don't really have a proactive approach. We kind of, if we see something, we will reach out, and sometimes people will reach out to us as well.
Well, then thank you very much to staff for reaching out and looking for those opportunities to recognize the accomplishments of the young people and members of our community. So thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Harris. Any other inquiries? Okay, oh, no, go ahead, Councillor Congo.
Thank you. Mine kind of fell on the same line as Councillor Harris's. So I was going to ask about arts and athletics, and historically, if we ever had an opportunity for those to either know how to request a certificate if they didn't have the opportunity, because as we even heard tonight, sports are seasonal, and so even some of our members of the hockey team weren't here because they're either engaged in golf or baseball and otherwise. But I didn't know, maybe it's more of a comment, but I was going to ask staff if and when the mandate of that youth council is determined, and if perhaps that could be a question to that youth council about how do we reflect youth in our communities, and whether that's just submitting a photo in time and we use that on our social media, or there's a scroll that we can use that's easy to adopt in time on the functionality of our website, or is it a gathering or some type of certification? But would love to see that discussed more broadly around how youth might feel the value of recognition.
Okay, I think staff have heard your comments around the Youth Council, but when that comes forward, I'm sure that will be an area for consideration. Thanks, Councillor Congo. Any other inquiries? Okay, seeing none. Announcements, Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead.
I do have one. It's that this Sunday is Kids Fishing Day at Barrie's Heritage Park. It's from 9 to 1. It's full disclosure, I'm a member of the Rotary Club that puts it on, but it's a great event. It's completely free. There is absolutely no charge for food, for fishing rods, for worms, for bait, for any of the entertainment, for any of the activities. It's all free, and it's because of the generosity of our sponsors, which TD Bank is the main sponsor. And it's the first one we've had, and the event's been going on for almost 2 decades, but it's the first one we've been able to have, like many things, in 2 years, so we're really excited to be able to bring it back. And it's also the first one where the Rotary Fishing Pier, and just wanted to say I had the honor of being at the opening of the Rotary Fishing Pier last week, and this is an idea that was by the late Co Solenbrook, who owned Crazy Fox, and Barrie Peacock, who's been very generous on many fronts in the city of Barrie. It was their idea to bring a fishing pier into Barrie. It would give, I would say Heritage Park's a great park. It's not very accessible to the waterfront isn't very accessible if you haven't got full abilities, because it's got that shoreline that people can't get right to the waterfront. The fishing pier is a way that anybody, even if you're in a wheelchair, you can go right to the waterfront and drop your line in. So it's a great addition to our waterfront. And thanks to the many generous sponsors and the 3 Rotary Clubs in Barrie, which got together to create that pier. So if you haven't been down to Heritage Park lately, go down and check it out. Thanks. Oh, and I should mention, Kids Fishing Day, you have to be registered, and you can go to www.letsfish, all one word, letsfish.ca to register. Thanks.
Thanks, Deputy Mayor Ward. Other announcements, members of council? Councillor Kungle.
Thank you. A couple of just reminders on behalf of Communities in Bloom, and happy Pollinate Week. So thanks to staff and others that have been involved around a number of activities that launched with Open Air Dunlop, I believe, this past Saturday and had great reception. So wanted to remind everyone to pick a pollinator. Please don't forget this week you've got time to take a picture of a pollinator and submit that to the city's contest and maybe win a bee hotel, but we're really trying to get youth engaged. In particular, I wanted to shout out a little acknowledgement. So in Ward 3, Cole Deephouse actually took his own initiative, seeing some of the city programming and hearing about the importance of native species, actually dug and created his own garden on his property. And his aim is to create enough space and grow enough produce to maybe donate it back this summer. So great things happening. We're hoping that Cole will actually register for free his garden with Communities in Bloom. And those garden registrations need to come in by, I believe, early July the 6th. So check the dates there, but hoping to see a lot of spotlights across the city for Communities in Bloom. And then lastly, I wanted to say thanks to city staff and to Nature Barrie. Some of you may have seen captured in media this week that Barrie officially was identified by Nature Canada as the 15th municipality to be certified as bird friendly. So Phyllis Tremblay in particular, who is an amazing individual in the city, took that initiative, brought it to Nature Barrie with others, Dorothy, Darren, Gwen, and many others. And I think there's lots to be proud of, but also you'll see many events. So any member of the public that's interested in getting involved, you can actually become part of the bird team. So reach out to Nature Barrie on their Facebook page.
Thanks, Councillor Kungle. Any other announcements, members of council? Councillor McCann.
Thank you, Mayor Lehman. Well, this just might be one of the last Ward 10 council meetings that I have here this Sunday. I'm organizing a free event for the rest of Ward 10. In this event, we're going to have volleyball. We're going to have a band, Rob Watts, playing from 12 to 1. We're also going to have 3 inflatable let me see if I can read this. Bouncy castles from Moonwalk, a local company. We're also just asking if you have the means to bring a donation to the food bank. Any cans of food will go to the food bank. And Domino's Pizza has graciously said anybody in Ward 10, family and friends that like to attend to Tyndale Park from 11 o'clock until 2:30, they're going to give free food, free pizza. So you're all invited. You're all welcome. Let's have some fun. And I just want to say thank you for the 8 years of vote and confidence. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor McCann. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none. I proclaim June 20th to June 2nd as Royal Victoria Regional Health Centre Anniversary Week, and June 20th to June 26th as St. John Ambulance Week. We had a great event this morning with first responders and members of St. John Ambulance who have been in existence for 81 years. Everyone's familiar with seeing their ambulances at special events, but they do so much more: therapy dogs, in-home supports, and many other programs. Councillor Kungle mentioned Pollinator Week. That is June 20th to June 26th, and barrie.ca/bcity for further details. June 15th to September 15th, so in effect now, we have the no parking except by permit, which will apply to all previously available on-street parking in certain spillover waterfront parking areas and areas within walking distance of waterfront locations. If you want to get more information on how those waterfront permits work and those parking locations, barrie.ca/waterfront parking. Last, the city invites residents and visitors to celebrate July 1st as a kickoff to summer with celebrations and free activities in Barrie. For more information and the full lineup of programming, visit the website. Bylaws, Deputy Mayor Ward, go ahead.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bills 56, 57, 58, and 59.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bills, and these bills be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 56, 57, 58, and 59. Comments or questions on the bylaws? Seeing none, those in favor? Anybody opposed? None? That carries. Deputy Mayor Ward.
Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 60, the confirmation bylaw.
It's moved by Deputy Mayor Ward, seconded by Councillor Thompson, that leave be granted to introduce the following bill, and this bill be read a first, second, and third time this day and finally passed. Bill 60, the confirmation bylaw. Comments or questions? There never are any. Those in favor? Anybody opposed? None. That carries. Can I have a motion to adjourn City Council, please? Councillor Harvey, seconded by Councillor Jim Harris. Thank you all. Council is adjourned.